Hey guys, just a quick video to acknowledge that YouTuber Repzion, MrRepzion, I guess, is going to try veganism for a month. He said sometime this year, and he actually tried vegetarianism. He was vegetarian for a month sometime last year, and I guess ever since then, or at some point since then, he started eating significantly less meat. So he says in this video that he just put up talking about veganism and environmentalism that he was eating meat, I think he says about 5 times a week, and now he's down to like 3 times a month. So that's pretty awesome.
Coming from somebody who used to eat bacon almost every single day, coming from somebody who would eat meat 5 times a week, someone who grew up eating meat every single day, I personally eat meat about 3 times a month.
So one of the big things that he talks about is shaming vegans, shaming non-vegans, trying to get them to go vegan. And he compares this to his own experience growing up in a very religious household and being shamed for normal behaviors.
So when people, vegans, if there are vegans out there, who come to me saying I'm a horrible person, I support animal rape, I'm a terrible person for eating meat or chicken, that's fine if you think that, but it actually pushes me away even further from wanting to listen what somebody has to say. Because that type of communication style, for me, this is for me, just me, I'm not talking about other people watching, that type of shaming, telling me that I'm a horrible person, makes me less inclined to want to hear what somebody has to say because of my upbringing.
This is something, I've talked about a lot. It's a real problem with the vegan community. We should really worry about the effect that shaming people for normal behavior. Now, normal, to be clear, does not mean that it's good behavior, only that this is something that the vast majority of people do, eat meat. This is something that I wish more vegans would consider instead of confronting individuals and calling them whatever, murderers, rapists, or just bad people. Instead, we should really focus on Carnism, as Melanie Joy calls it.
Carnism is universal. In meat-eating cultures around the world, people typically classify only a tiny handful of animals, out of millions of possible species, as edible. All the rest are classified as inedible and disgusting. So even though the type of species consumed changes from culture to culture, members of all cultures tend to find their own choices to be rational, and the choices of other cultures to be disgusting and often even offensive.
And how this makes it so hard for otherwise good people to realize that what they're doing is wrong. And even if they do realize it, to change. Because look, it's much harder to do something, even if you know it's the right thing to do, when everyone else is doing the opposite, when everyone around you is saying, yeah, keep eating meat. What's wrong with it? And some people even look at you like you're crazy when you try not to eat meat, or they start making fun of you, or sometimes you can even lose friendships over it. I think that's something that a fair number of vegans and vegan activists need to consider. I think we need to be a little bit more patient and just nice to people, and really listen to people too. Yes, there are the people who are just like, bacon, whatever, but there are a lot of people who have legitimate concerns and legitimate questions regarding veganism, and I think we need to listen and answer those concerns and not just assume that they're trolling or just, being dicks. And so when someone like Repzion says, like, look, the vegan gain style, even though I agree with some of the things that he says, that style just does not work for me. And it makes it hard for me to listen to what that person has to say when they are being that aggressive. I think we need to take that seriously. And I know some could argue that, oh, well, he's wrong, that vegan gains actually did influence Repzion to at least try veganism, because now he's trying veganism. And you know what? That could, in fact, be right. Maybe, watching vegan gain stuff and even getting frustrated by him, maybe it did influence him to, at least at some point down the line, watch other videos or learn about veganism through other people and, other activists and whatnot. But we don't know that. It could easily be the case that vegan gains actually inhibited Repzion's decision to try vegetarianism and try veganism. Maybe he would have tried it even earlier on if he had encountered other nicer vegans. I'm not pretending to have all the answers, but when people like Repzion tell us over and over and over again that this style of activism is ineffective, when psychologist and longtime activist Melanie Joy tells us that this style of activism is ineffective, And when animal charities like Mercy for Animals tell us, again, that this is ineffective, I think we should listen. My point is that we don't know, and it's really, really dangerous to just assume, as some people do, that all approaches, all activism styles are equally valid. As I said in a recent video, we really need to be careful when we are doing what I'm doing right now, making a video that's going to be seen by all sorts of different people. We really have to be careful and not assume that our style or our message is going to reach every single person the same way. And I think it's fair to assume that most people are not going to be positively influenced, at least in the short term, by a really aggressive style. So yeah, he's going to try vegan for a month at some point this year, which is super, super awesome. And so just some tips for him or anyone else who wants to try vegan. I do have a video, just like basic vegan nutrition. Of course, check out theveganrd.com and veganhealth.org for excellent information. There's a lot of bullshit vegan nutrition information out there, like eat low fat, fully raw till 4, all that kind of stuff. But these sites are legit and evidence-based. He also talks about he has a wish list, an Amazon wish list for some recipe books. He's looking for vegan recipe books. So I looked through the books. I don't have any of those books, unfortunately, so I don't know. I know he had She Glows books on there, one of her books. Maybe she only has one book. I'm not sure. I've made some of her recipes before and they've been pretty tasty. Minimalist Baker as well. I've made some of her stuff that's been good. I would also recommend, there's a really good, I think he had a like a slow cooker vegan book or something on there. Those are always great because they're usually really easy. You just basically throw it in there and let it cook, and it's super, super easy. There's another one, it's like vegan slow cooker or something like that. I'll find it and put the name and the author, but I've made some of the recipes from that. They're really easy and super, super tasty. Also, Isa, anything from her is just great. I've made so many of her recipes. My mom had like all of her recipe books. I think there was one recipe, there was like a waffle recipe that we weren't crazy about, but everything else I've made has been delicious. Also, there's some YouTube channels that focus on, vegan recipes. I mean, my recipes are just basic and boring and kind of shit, but there are some vegan channels that make just really delicious looking, awesome food. Cheap Lazy Vegan makes some really simple, delicious stuff. Hot for Food, oh my gosh, there is one sandwich episode where they did like a sandwich off, and they just, both of them look, oh my god, they look so good. So yeah, check out those channels. And that's pretty much it. I do want to quickly talk about something that Repzion mentioned briefly. He just made this comment that the cruelty that's happening, the animal cruelty, it's kind of rare. It's only happening on a small number of farms, that most farms are fine and doing things correctly and humanely.
I'm not going to take a few bad animal farms that brutalize animals or harm animals in horrible, barbaric ways and don't follow procedure like they're supposed to.
I wanted to comment on this quickly because I think this is a misconception that a lot of people have. And I think partly it may be because of some vegan activism. I do worry when I see a lot of focus on individual workers doing something that is overly cruel, right? Like kicking a chicken or just slamming chickens around or something that the industry can then say, oh, we frown upon this is not part of our industry standards. And so I fear that it makes it seem like, okay, these are the cruel things that are happening to farm animals, and it's just a few workers doing it. The reality is that the industry standards themselves are cruel. So we have the confined conditions, we have debeaking, we have the grinding up of male chicks. I mean, there are so many different, the living in feces, the getting sick constantly and having to be on antibiotics because they're in these confined, filthy conditions. So I do kind of worry about when I see a lot of focus on individual workers. This is something that Roaming Millennial said in her video. We should put the blame on the workers who are doing these cruel things. I think that's really misguided when the industry standards are so cruel. Even if workers in, the farms themselves and the slaughterhouses, even if they did things by the book 100% the industry would still be cruel. Not to say that individual workers doing these things and being overly cruel isn't an issue. I mean, it's an issue for the animals, and it's an issue for the workers as well, and what they're feeling that's leading them to, behave this way. And it's probably because of the horrible conditions that they are in and taking out their frustration on the animals. So there's an inevitability to it, I think. When you have these conditions that are already so bad for the animals and for the people involved, it's inevitable that the people, at least some of them, are going to act out. So again, these instances matter. I just fear that if we focus on them, it can be pretty easy for non-vegans and people who aren't sympathetic at all to veganism, not like Repzion, but some, other people who we've seen, who I've talked about sometimes on this channel, can be pretty easy for them to say, oh, well, that's just a rarity, right? These instances are rare. Other than that, the industry is humane. So that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, comments and questions, leave those down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. And thank you so much to everyone who does support the channel. It's super awesome. And of course, you can support the channel in other ways, just by sharing the videos and liking the videos, if you like them, of course. You know how this works. Everybody knows how YouTube works at this point, I think. Yeah, but super special thank you to these patrons: Alec Larson, Ali Perception Trainers, H.S. Ross, Isidro, James Baker, Jody Lucas, and Nicholas Cipriani? Or maybe Cipriani? Because I think it's Italian, so I think it would be Cipriani. Oh my gosh. I should really contact you guys personally and ask you how to pronounce your names before I try to read them, aka butcher them. But thank you so much, everybody, and I will have a video hopefully soon. Hey guys, so this is just a quick video to acknowledge, that's not a word.